You got to step onto that staircase, even though that one step, even though you can't see the rest of the staircase. That's what God's calling us to do. He says you're going to experience fear. We'll never conquer our fears. We just get to press into it.
Paula, you and I have both made our careers out of using our voices as communicators, to tell stories or to tell about stories. But now let's talk about how people who are watching, people who aren't professional storytellers, people who aren't journalists, how they can find their voice, so to speak, by embracing the story that God is already writing for them in their own life, and then using that story to impact the world.
Well, I think we all get caught up in that trap of comparison, no matter where we are in life, right? I look at my own life and I'm like, there's honestly nothing special about me. I grew up in a small town in Jackson, Michigan. I went to a small Christian college, married my college sweetheart. I did something cool vocationally for a while, but like there's nothing super special about me. And I think so often we diminish our own story in our own mind, and that's where it has to stop. I did a recent interview with Pastor Louis Giglio. You're familiar with Pastor Giglio. And this is something that has really helped me, and I hope it helps anybody that is listening and watching right now, is how uniquely created each and every one of us is created to be. There's only one you. We're each made up of 3 billion characters in our DNA. And if you were to stretch that across, if you were to read one character per minute, it would take something like 96 years. And there's only one DNA code for you. God has a unique purpose and a unique plan for you. Don't diminish your story. There's only one you. Of all the DNA codes, of all the numbers, there's only one that matches your description. And just like a body, you look at your own body. Yes, my hands might do a lot of work because I talk with my hands a lot, but without the joints and without the elbow and without the shoulder, we are all comprised of one body, and we each have a role. Some of those roles might be a little more front and center. Some of them may be hidden, right? But there is significance and importance in each and every role, and just embracing that. Don't diminish your story. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. You were knit together in your mother's womb. You are made in the image of God, and there's only one you, and He has a precise purpose and plan for you, but it starts with you not diminishing your story and then embracing how unique and how special you were created to be.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I've struggled at times thinking like, oh man, like, are my best days behind me? Are the exciting things that I've done in my rear view mirror, and what am I gonna do to keep my life exciting into the future? And yet, when I read stories like we just talked about in the Bible, and I remember one person one time sort of explained what they saw in my life that was totally different from what I had seen. And it gave me new hope because they just crafted a narrative about my life in a way that I wasn't looking at it. And I think that it's just so important for us to do that. And I would encourage people, if you were writing a story about your own life, like really, like if you were gonna write a book or like a short story about your own life, he grew up here, she had this many siblings, I think looking at life as a narrative story is really exciting. Right. And then realize that you're just in one of the middle chapters right now. And some of the very most exciting and pivotal important chapters are still going to be written, even though you don't know what they are. But have faith in the author. Right. Make friends with the author, and together with him, you get to write the rest of the story through the choices that you make. That's pretty exciting stuff.
It's really exciting, and it comes down to like seeing your life in chapters, seeing your vocation in chapters. We're called to do different things in different seasons, and while I might just be in the middle of my book, I hope so. I hope there's more chapters to come. Yeah. But my mother is 81 years old, Kirk, and we lost my father a couple of years ago. And I remember after my dad passed, she said, I don't really know who I am anymore. She'd lost so much of her identity in just being a wife and losing so much of who she was in that. And she didn't know who she was. Fast forward a couple years, my mother had a stroke a couple of months ago, and thank God, she's doing really well. She's had to relearn how to how to read, how to write, how to tell time. She has more joy, I'm telling you right now, than I have ever seen in my mother's life. And she says, Paula, I'm 81 and I'm not nearly done. God is not done writing my story. I still feel like he is calling me to new things. He's calling me to be a joy. He's given me a second chance so that I can share with people the love of Jesus, so that I can encourage people in this new season. And I just think it's such a beautiful description. She's like, as long as I got life, as long as I'm breathing, God's not done with me yet. I'm 81 and not nearly done. And I think we just embrace that we're going to have different touch points and we're going to be called to different things in our life, right?
What would you say to the people who realize that a big change is happening in their life, either because of something like a stroke, a health issue like that, or maybe it's a professional career change like you've experienced, and they say, wait a minute, okay, my life's going in a different direction right now, and they want to find God's will for their life, and they're thinking, I just don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what to do. Maybe the lockdowns over these last couple of years have taken away all of the things that they've been leaning on. Mm-hmm. How did you make this change from what you were doing to what you're doing now, and really embracing it, owning it, and saying, this is great? Can you give any advice for those of us who are thinking about those things?
100%, yeah. Yeah, I'm in that season of change and that season of resetting and season of, God, what's going on here? But I think the first thing is change is normal, and change is bound to happen in our life. The other thing is fear is normal. So often we're scared to make a change because we're scared of what's possibly on the other side. Maybe it's the unknown. But one thing that's given me great comfort, Kirk, is Joshua 1:9, when God called Joshua to take down the cities of Jericho, he says, have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged, for the Lord your God's with you everywhere you go. And I just really clung to that verse, have I not commanded you? So yes, change is going to happen, and we can have a peace in our spirit that maybe we're supposed to go in this direction, but we can still feel fear along the way. And God recognizes that we're going to feel fear. He promises he'll be there, but he says, have I not commanded you? And realize along the way, your failure's normal too. How many you have to fail? Michael Jordan said the key to success is failure, right? So change is normal, fear is normal, failure is normal, and I just think we're so hard on ourselves, and we think that we have to make the exact right move. And what is God's will for my life? And you know what? God wants us to move. God is commanding us to move. If you have a peace in your spirit that God wants you to pursue something, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. When God calls you, he will equip you. But you have to start moving. Have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? It's like you program in your GPS, I'm going to take inside your car. I can't find my way around a paper bag, okay? I'm always programming the directions into my GPS. But I want you to pretend like you're in a car right now. You programmed the directions in, and right at the genesis of the journey, it's like it can't recognize where you are, Kirk. So you're like, it's like got that blue arrow and it's circling. Like, do I go left or do I go right? Like it's spinning.
It's sort of orienting itself.
I don't know if I'm supposed to. Yes, but guess what? You have to start moving, and when you start moving, then you realize, oh, I took a wrong turn. I got to reroute. I got to turn around, or I just started driving in the right direction and I'm on my way to my destination. But you don't figure that out until you start moving. And we often we're like, I'm going to wait on God. And yes, wait on God, can have a peace about it, but know that you're the one that has to do the work. You have to step out in faith. You got to step onto that staircase, even though that one step, even though you can't see the rest of the staircase. That's what God's calling us to do. He says you're going to experience fear. We'll never conquer our fears. We just get to press into it, right? We get to press into it. And that's when God really starts revealing himself to you, is when you step out in faith and you say, you know what? I'm just going to start driving. And guess what? When I start driving, then it's everything will be made clear. But we often overthink it. We're like, wait, God. But God needs us to take that step. And then he promises us that he's going to be there. And I'm telling you, when you step out in faith, God reveals himself and he takes care of you. And some of it might involve failure, but I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have been as successful as I was vocationally in broadcasting had I not failed and fallen on my face. And I've learned more from those failures than I have from virtually anything else in life. Success, the key to success is truly failure. You learn so much from it. So, yeah, change is normal, fear is normal, failure is normal. It truly is.